Everybody joining me today is David Schultz. You can check him out on WNSP down in Mobile from 3 to 6 every day on the game plan. He's program director and obviously host there. And David, I appreciate you taking time.
Thanks for having me, Phillip.
It's good to have you on. And I told you off air, but I mean to do this for a while. And just what are the different ways people can check you out down there in Mobile if they're not in the Mobile area?
Well, you can always Dave WNSP on the Twitterverse, Sound of Mobile app, our station app, and I guess Facebook a little bit. We put stuff on. I probably should put more on Facebook, but so the Sound of Mobile app has all of our stations. We have 4 local stations. You just got to choose 105.5 WNSP.
Yeah, and of course, I asked you, we're going to talk. This is Iron Bowl week, a big week in the state. With Alabama and Auburn playing each other, it doesn't matter what the record is, it's always a big deal when these two play. But before we do that, I was going to ask you a little bit, about your radio career. What got you into broadcast? I know you've got over 2 decades worth of in the business. So what got you going in that direction?
Well, I wanted to be a Major League Baseball announcer. I can go back to the 1985 last week of the season, Yankees Blue Jays, and tell you a whole story about that. But that's what I wanted to do, and I spent over a decade in minor league baseball and kind of maxed out, and then moved to Florida and was in the hotel industry, and I got into golf and everything like that, and that was a lot of fun. I mean, when you can roll out of your office at 5:30 and go play the Blue Monster at Doral, that's not a bad little gig for a little bit. And especially in February when you've seen your friends are under 3 or 4 feet of snow and I'm on the 12th hole on the Blue Monster. So that's pretty cool. But eventually I got to a place where I really liked to work in Key Largo of all places. And they kept on bringing in these motivational speakers saying, you got to go do what you want to do. And, so I lucked out, got a job in Lafayette, Louisiana, and did really well there, and now we're in Mobile. Ratings just came out last Friday, and with the most listened to and highest rated show in Mobile. Not bad for a Yankee. And so we're rocking and rolling. I probably owe that to, Auburn, Alabama, South Alabama, and the Saints. But we're loving what we're doing. And like you said, it's a pretty big week around here.
Yeah, it is. And Alabama, Auburn, you have plenty to talk about, which I have a feeling Auburn is giving a lot more to talk about this week as well. With everything going on, which we're going to jump into that. What I always like to ask people when I have them on, especially, like people in radio or, in broadcasting or journalism anyway, did you have some major influences, that point you that direction? Like people you idolized growing up that did the business or in the business?
Well, I grew up, again, listening to Yankee baseball, also Syracuse Chiefs baseball. Sean McDonough was there, network guy now for ESPN and CBS. Dan Horde, who was the longtime voice of the Bengals. He was a guy I listened to a lot. Doug Logan was probably the voice of the Orange when I was, old enough to realize Joel Marinas was before that. But I just had, I liked the guys. I was in Jacksonville, Florida, in the mid to late, I guess it would have been the late 90s, actually had more sports stations than New York. ESPN radio in New York didn't start until after 2000. And there was a head-to-head competition down there in Jacksonville. And all those guys, I still talk to a lot of them, from Cole Pepper. He's now actually on TV. Frank Frangie, who was a newspaper guy and then radio guy. And now, he hosts afternoons down there. And now he's the voice of the Jacksonville Jaguars. I was actually his producer for a little bit, and he gave me, you'll appreciate this, Phillip, he gave me the chance to host a show Friday after Thanksgiving. He's taking that day off, so I'm going to host the show. And, I knew exactly what I was going to talk about. What is it with you people, and I did a you people thing, that college football recruiting, and this is 1999, college football recruiting is the end-all, be-all down here. And I don't get it, because outside of a very select few, and this is way back when, you're not going to see them until their third year here, right? Very few freshmen were starting back then. You're lucky if you see the field as a redshirt freshman. Maybe as a redshirt sophomore, you're going to contribute. Obviously, that's very different today. But I had a 3-hour show, and everybody was cool. Some people giving me a hard time. But Frank came back and said, Dave, I listened to the show. You could probably do this. And so it took a little bit of time to come around and doing it on a regular basis. But there's a lot of people that have helped me along the way.
Yeah, and you transitioned to Louisiana to Mobile. What was the biggest difference between that? Going from the two different markets.
Oh, well, again, as a Yankee, Louisiana is a different. Lafayette is a different,
Sure.
And even in the state, right? If you go north of Alexandria, it's more Texas, and the Cajun country is some of the most welcoming, accepting people that I've ever been around. And I've lived everywhere outside of the Rocky Mountains and the upper Northwest. I've lived on the West Coast, Texas, Midwest, Southeast, Northeast, Midwest, everywhere. And it was a lot of fun. I show up there, Phillip, in Lafayette, and they may have had their best college sports season ever, right? Billy Napier's got them rolling now. When I showed up, it was in the middle of the Mark Hudspeth era. They go to their third bowl game in a row. The basketball team goes to the NCAA basketball tournament for the first time in about a decade. College softball goes to the College World Series for the first time in a while. And baseball was the number one team in the country. And, I fell in love with college baseball and then softball as well. And so it was a lot of fun being in Lafayette, Louisiana, and a chance to cover the Saints as well. So Mobile's been great. Mobile's absolutely been great. It's been a mirror. It's a lot like a mirror city in terms of the sports. The difference is there's two SEC teams instead of just one, but it's a Sun Belt city with South, and maybe Kane Womack has that going in the right direction. But Mark Calvey with South Alabama won the Sun Belt baseball tournament last year, and Richie Riley has basketball maybe going in the right direction. Not maybe, but probably does. So it's been a lot of fun covering local. The big difference would be I'm 3 hours away from Tuscaloosa and or Auburn, and so it's tough to get up there on any kind of regular basis. So we kind of, a hashtag tweet from the couch when I'm watching those games.
You mentioned South Alabama. I know this year, first year under Kane Womack, they're 5-6. I know they play Coastal Carolina on Friday. Right. I mean, Coastal maybe has not been as good since Grayson McCall got injured. I mean, obviously South Alabama would love to win that game, get bowl eligible. What's been your overall take on his first season there?
He has built the culture really fast, and he has a combination because he was the defensive coordinator, before I guess he went to Indiana. So he understands the culture. He wanted to be here. He absolutely maybe could have gone somewhere else for more money, but he wanted this job. He wanted to be a head coach, and they got it going in the right direction. They probably need a quarterback. Jake Bentley came in for 1 year. The wide receivers, the Jalen Tolbert, Jalen Wayne are leaving. So last year is not the first class as far as I'm concerned, because that's kind of done up with him. And he got a bunch of transfers in, including, Jamal Brooks at middle linebacker. So, he's got to get the recruiting going. There's plenty of talent here in Mobile. There really is. Not everybody can go to Alabama or Auburn or Ole Miss or LSU or Florida State. So you should be able to pick up some talent here locally, and that'll get the enthusiasm, because there's nobody that has better facilities in Group of Five than South Alabama. They may have the same, but with the Mitchell Center basketball and baseball and softball are pretty good, and the football stadium is brand new. It's going forward, and it's looking pretty good going forward. He needs a quarterback, and we'll see what happens after that. But we'll see. They play better at home. They obviously got hammered by Tennessee. That was kind of, as expected. But if Jake Bentley, who's been nursing a bad knee, can play against Coastal, and, all signs, we don't know that yet. So we'll see. But, they'll have to play better defensively than they have recently. They kind of tripped up when they lost to Texas State. They were the better team. They probably could have beaten ULM. ULM's much better with Terry Bowden and Rich Rod this year. So they missed an opportunity to already be bowl eligible, because just looking at the schedule, at Troy, at App State, at Tennessee, and then hosting Coastal, that was going to be really hard anyway. And that doesn't include, your starting quarterback going down with a bad knee in the first series against Troy. So we'll see what they can do against Coastal. Coastal's defense has been having trouble, right? They lost a couple bit, but they even lost to Troy. They even beat Troy, and that they still gave up a bunch of points to Troy. So it hasn't been the offense that's really been a problem. It's been, for some reason, the App State, the Coastal defense. So we'll see if they can take advantage of that.
Yeah, you mentioned recruiting. I know over here in the Dothan area at the end of the season, we always look, okay, who's got to play somebody from that Mobile region in the playoffs, because that's always a tough deal. I remember a couple of years ago, Dothan was the number 1 seed from their region in Region 2, 6A, before they moved to 7A, but they played a 4 seed from the team from Mobile, and we were all like, that is not your normal 4 team from a region. When you play somebody from Mobile, just because the talent in Mobile is just unreal.
So it's a little bit odd. 6A is actually considered the toughest region in the state compared to 7A, right? When you have Saraland and Spanish Fort and Daphne and Fairhope all in 6A, maybe Fairhope in 7A, but then, and now you got Mark Hudspeth, my guy over in Gulf Shores, he's in 6A. It is a tough spot. We still only have, we had a handful of teams up there last year trying to win it, but we got Viger and Jackson in 4A going head to head. And that's, we'll have that game this Friday. Anthony Mixie's had a really challenging high school career, but Viger's, I think, only lost 1 game this year. And they're favored certainly to beat Jackson. And then we'll see if they get to the Super 7.
Yeah, absolutely. That's like I said, tough. That and the Opelika area, and obviously the Birmingham, Tuscaloosa area is pretty tough in this state. Now, Alabama, Auburn, the Iron Bowl.
Yeah. Right.
Oh, what on your show this week, what do you expect to be the conversation about this game? Auburn, Alabama, either side. It's
going to be a lot of cliches, like you said. You got to throw out the records. Yeah. The problem is that there's 2 things going on here, right? I was talking to a friend of mine yesterday, and he said, "Well, Alabama's mediocre." And I'm like, "Well, not really. They're just not Alabama awesome. Yeah. They're good. They're really good. They're just not what they were last year. And even against some of the teams, that maybe even lost to Clemson, they're not quite as good as those teams, right? Defensively, I mean, Arkansas, put up a lot of points. Let's give the defense credit and Bryce Young credit, because they were in the same spot against A&M and they failed against A&M. I know one game was at home and one was on the road, but nonetheless, Arkansas had a chance to take the lead in that ball game, and the defense stepped up and the offense stepped up. Auburn, not to look too much ahead, but we certainly will. It's tough to believe this, but we just saw what happened with Dan Mullen. Brian Harsin could be facing a 5-game losing streak heading into next year.
Yeah.
If they lose this game as expected, although like you said, who knows, and lose the bowl game, which Auburn has not been able to win on any sort of regular basis and not even caring to, he's going to be 6-7. He started out 6-2.
Yeah.
And only needed wins against Mississippi State and South Carolina to get 8 wins. And then you win a bowl game. Now you win 9 games. Instead, it looks like he panicked against South Carolina. Didn't make any adjustments against Mississippi State. What's the quarterback situation heading into next year? I presume Bo Nix is coming back, but are we saying that 100%? I'm not. I think he's coming back, but I'm not so sure. TJ Finley kind of looked like TJ Finley the other night against not the best of all SEC defenses. So there's a lot about talking about these teams on their own. And then, you get the nostalgia. What's your favorite? I'll probably ask what your favorite Iron Bowl is. That's always a good question. More so because I just didn't grow up with it. So people are going to have better memories than me, but I got here and, Mac Jones is throwing interceptions off of, Najee Harris is back, right? Yeah. I mean, talk about a fluke play, but that's the kind of play that Auburn is like, well, that happens when we play Alabama at home. So, again, maybe throw out all the records, but you're going to, most people, I would think this week, are nervous it's going to get out of control fast. Yeah, that's the thing. That right on paper, right? Yeah. If this was not Auburn, Alabama, and you had these 2 teams playing, right? Not a big rivalry game. Like you would think this game's going to be 45-10.
Yeah.
All right. Plus, because one coach won't have his best player playing. I mean, did you see the average? TJ Finley averaged 5.9 yards a pass.
Most of it was at the line of scrimmage on Saturday night. There was not a lot of deep throws other than a 4th and 1 when you get
4th and 1. Yeah, that's a high percentage throw.
Yeah.
And yet Tank Bigsby averaged 7.5 yards a rush. So let's pass more than we rush for some reason. So that's where the conversation is really going to be. Again, if this was just these two teams without the name on them, and you looked at the stats and the way these two teams are playing, you would think it'd be 45-10. And I would think that's what people are nervous about. Auburn fans are going to talk themselves into, maybe we get the magic of playing at Jordan-Hare and maybe we can pressure, Bryce Young, although they really didn't pressure Will Rogers. They haven't pressured Jordan Brown with South Carolina. So have fun trying to pressure Alabama and TJ Finley. But the thing is, though, that's Alabama's bugaboo is their offensive line, right? I mean, we'll see how it goes. It'll be a lot of fun, though. That's for sure. It doesn't, I don't have to worry about content this week. That's really my main concern.
Yeah, and I said it last week, and I'm going to still stay by this. There's a lot of people who are happy that Bo Nix wasn't going to be the quarterback at the end of the year, and I said, be careful what you wish for, because this is me as a guy to watch them every week, covering college football. I see that as I feel like he would have made it. He wasn't the only reason why they struggled against South Carolina. There was a bunch of different stuff. Like you said with Tank Bigsby, don't run in the ball, which I was not a fan of the Mike Bobo hire from the start.
Either was I. And yet, we've seen what Bobo and Harsin have done, what they did against Ole Miss, what they did against Arkansas, right? They're really, it wasn't even the fade against Penn State, really a collection of that last series of plays that they lost that ball game. But they almost went into State College and won that football game. Now, if they did anything offensively against A&M, they would have won the football game. The defense was spectacular. And then all of a sudden, everyone's complaining about Mason because not making any adjustments against Mississippi State. The offense just, I know there was a bad call. I don't understand how that was overruled with the touching, on the punt. So a little crazy there, but that's not where they lost the game. That's where the game was sealed. But that's not where they lost the game. They absolutely lost the game on the play that you mentioned, 4th and 1. I don't mind going for it, but I mind the low percentage play that it was. He was throwing into coverage. I didn't understand it. You can do a quick out route. You can do a quick slant. You can do something really quick. I don't need 40. I don't need 20 or 30 yards. I need 1 and spread people out and just run Tank Bigsby. Here you go. You maybe even announce it. We're running Tank Bigsby to the right. Try to stop us. 7.5 yards per carry.
Yeah.
And, well, I mean, they didn't score. They didn't score a touchdown. They scored their last touchdown with 2:37 to go in the first quarter.
Yeah.
So they almost went 45 minutes without scoring a touchdown. And Auburn fans think, well, we would have scored in the last 2 minutes. I don't think so.
Yeah. You can say that, but it just evidence from the rest of the game shows the offense struggled. And the offense has struggled in the second half the last 4 weeks, only 12 points. Even in that winning against Ole Miss, they only scored 3 points in the second half. They just held on. Right. I think because Lane Kiffin, likes to go for 4th down 100 times a game. Right. But, then you look at the rest of the way with that. With Alabama, obviously they have the Auburn game. We expect them to beat Auburn. I think you would think so.
Yep.
So playing Georgia.
Right.
Do you think there's a chance that the Alabama team can beat Georgia? Because you look at Georgia, they've dominated everybody they played, but when you look at who they played, you can poke a little holes in it. Georgia's dominant. They're the best team in college football, without a doubt.
I agree.
But I just kind of wonder with Georgia, what's going to happen if this is a close game? Because they have not been in one. Alabama's been in a bunch. I'm just, I think Georgia's better, but I just want to see what's your thoughts going into.
Well, just say Georgia gets punched in the face.
Yeah.
Right. It's not out of the question, right? It's not crazy. Alabama gets the ball, right? I thought it was ridiculous, Phillip. Early on in the season, people up taking the coin toss against Alabama, like, we'll defer, you get the ball first. That didn't work out well for Miami. Didn't work well out for Florida. Why am I giving Alabama the ball to begin with? So it's just say Alabama goes down and scores a touchdown. Georgia doesn't, and Alabama scores another touchdown. Now, all of a sudden, with 5 minutes left to go in the first quarter, it's Alabama 14, Georgia nothing, right? So let's see what happens if Georgia gets punched in the nose. All right. So I'm not one of those guys, though, that thinks that, well, Stetson Bennett can't lead you to a national championship. All right. I haven't done the numbers lately, but a couple weeks ago, Bryce Young was averaging 43 points. Alabama was averaging 43 points a game. Georgia was averaging 42.2 points a game with Stetson Bennett, the 4th, by the way, as the starting quarterback. So I'm not one of those guys. I think Stetson Bennett, I don't know what people are watching telling me Stetson Bennett can't do it. Also, Stetson Bennett is like 5'11", 190. Bryce Young is like 6 foot, 195.
Yeah.
So there's not a whole lot of difference between the two guys. And as it comes down to, Stetson Bennett may be a better athlete, right? He runs it, whereas Bryce Young doesn't really want to do a whole lot. So here's the problem going into the game. We'll see. So they're having trouble, pass protecting.
Yeah, that's the problem.
Right. That's a problem. So LSU was doing it zero blitz, right? We're, zero coverage. We're bringing the house. The problem is for Alabama is Georgia can do that without bringing the house. So I'm going to get pressure on you with the front four, and I'm going to drop 7. I'm going to have a linebacker spying on Bryce Young or that running back. We'll see if they can handle that. All right. So someone was telling me they think that it's going to be like a 21. Someone was mentioning it's going to be a 21-point line. It'll probably be a 7 to 10-point line. I would be shocked if Georgia blows out Alabama. I just don't, only because that just doesn't happen.
Yeah.
In games that Alabama has cared about under Nick Saban, they do not get blown out. They may lose, but they, outside, I guess, one Clemson game where that game kind of spiraled out of control with turnovers, but that just doesn't happen. And so I think Georgia's going to win that football game. Looking ahead, unless Kirby, wants to fake punt it when he shouldn't fake punt it, right? And, pulls a Brian Harsin. Or maybe Brian Harsin pulled a Kirby Smart. I don't know. But, on the surface, it kind of looks like Georgia is going to win that football game. It'll be interesting. You could set up a rematch if Cincinnati gets at the number 4 spot. And then you got, you want to have fun, Phillip. Ohio State and Alabama. I take the over on that one. I don't think there's going to be a whole lot of defense in that ball game. Could be who has the ball last. Flip the coin with that one. So we could be in for a heck of a playoff. But I think Georgia's going to be favored. I don't think they're going to blow them out. But like you said, what happens if they get punched in the mouth or they're in a close game? They have not been in a close game. We have seen, Alabama take care of Florida in a close ball game. We have seen them take care of Arkansas in a close ball game. They did not take care of A&M. So that was the other thing.
Yeah.
Everyone's like, Stetson Bennett can't do that, can't do this. But it was Bryce Young and Alabama who kind of faltered against A&M compared to Stetson Bennett. Now, he hasn't been in that situation. I don't even think they've been in a 1-score game in the fourth quarter. So it'll be a little different. And even Alabama, you go back. Last year was not the easiest SEC championship game. That was a really good game. And, as we're reading, a few less penalties and a few less turnovers, that may have been a different story for Florida because they were super talented in that football game and maybe a little defense on Florida's side. But I don't think it'll be a blowout, but I do think Georgia will be favored and will win the game as of right now.
Yeah, I do too. I want as we close up this conversation.
Also, just to answer your question, of course, Alabama has a chance, but they have to play their best game of the year to beat Georgia. And hopefully Georgia does not play their best game.
Final thing for us to go. I am going to throw out a scenario for you in that game. I want to see what you think about it. The storybook, how good it would be for everybody to have something to talk about today at the championship game. Georgia struggles in the first half.
Right.
JT Daniels comes in the second half. Leads a Georgia comeback, a mirror of what Alabama has done to Georgia in the national championship and the SEC championship game when Tua came in for Jalen and then Jalen came in for Tua. I'm just saying that it probably won't happen, but I'm just saying how funny and a good talking point that would be if that happens.
Are you saying JT Daniels is going to take a sack and then complete 2nd and 26? Is that what's going to happen?
Well, if that does, it's just written in the stars.
Well, if that happens, I'm calling fix. I'm calling conspiracy. I'm calling Greg Sankey in the SEC offices. If you get 2nd and 26 for JT Daniels, that scenario is not all that far fetched. You never know. And CeeDee Lamb bangs his head on the ground and is out with a concussion. Anything can happen, right? You get a blindside hit or something like that. I'm never convinced that you're going to. Sometimes you kind of. It's amazing, right? Think how close that Bryce Young got. Why he was in the football game? What was it, 49-3 against New Mexico State? I don't know. And then because all he was doing was handing off. And then when did he come out? Oh, that's right, when he became a sandwich. And so who knows what could have happened there, right? Alabama's really fortunate that he didn't get hurt, and I don't think he played after that play. So anything can happen. That is not out of the realm of possibility. If I'm Alabama and the only way I'm going to win a ball game is if the backup quarterback comes in, that's probably not, the scenario that I'm looking forward to, but it certainly would be fun. My producer is a Georgia guy. He would love that.
Somebody mentioned to me yesterday, I hadn't really thought about myself. I said, you know what, I've thought about JT Daniels coming in the game, but I never thought about just kind of how it would mirror what happened when Alabama beat Georgia the 2 times. So it would be pretty funny if that did happen. But it's going to be interesting this weekend, a rivalry weekend in college football, and the SEC championship game the next week. And David, this has been a lot of fun having you on the show today. And if listeners and viewers want to follow you online, where can they find you?
At Dave WNSP. Real easy. I'm not very hidden.
Well, sounds good, David. And I appreciate the time. And I hope we can do this again sometime down the road.
Anytime, Phillip. Thank you so much.